Great. So some general housekeeping items to discuss. So microphones, I've mentioned this before, please have your microphone muted. There is the closed caption feature located at the bottom of the screen that you can enable. Attendance will be recorded, so that link will be provided at the end of today's session. Recording will be made available next week, so communication will be sent out about that. And then we have our resource. So there is that summit resource on our brockbusu.ca/clubs. And I'll put that in the chat as well. So you would be going to the brockbusu.ca/clubs site. And once you scroll down, there is a section titled March Summit, and that's where you'll find lots of the information that we've been handing out. I'll be sure to screen share at the end of this session for those that are unable to locate specifically where those resources are. And without further ado, we'll get started with the slideshow. Okay, great. Amazing. So let me just minimize the screen. Okay, so again, thank you very much for coming to our March BUSU Clubs Summit for our 2021 year. Super exciting to go into this club journey and this transition phase with all of you, especially those that are new to the role, those that are about to start a new club. I understand that there's lots of information, but equally excited to welcome you as well as our returning representatives. So with this session, and similar to all of the other sessions, and hopefully most of us were present at yesterday's Brock HRE presentation, a land acknowledgement rather is very important for clubs to adopt. The Brock University Student Union is situated on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples. The territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Again, hopefully everyone was in attendance in yesterday's session where we learned more about land acknowledgements and what we can do with our student spaces moving forward. I'm sure you all know who I am, but that pixelated picture, which didn't look like that at the beginning of the week, is me. So I am Hibo Ahmed. I am the BUSU Clubs manager. I oversee our amazing BUSU Clubs department. We currently have 119 clubs, which is record breaking. Yay. And I also work alongside Carissa, Radia, and Ron. Carissa will be joining us momentarily, but I will head over to Radia to give a bit of an introduction.
Thank you so much, Hibo. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here on this Friday afternoon. I know it's probably been a long week for a lot of you. I know it has for me. But yeah, my name is Radia. I am the Vice President of Student Services. So for a lot of you clubs, unfortunately, I won't be a part of your journey over the next year, but you'll be able to meet your new VPSS over the course of the next year. And I'm very excited to keep in touch and see how BUSU clubs are running. The clubs have done an amazing job this year adapting to the virtual sphere. So very excited to see how it goes when it comes time to transition back into an in-person model. But thank you, Hibo.
Thank you very much. And we will turn the virtual mic over to Ron Bowman, our Senior Manager, Student Engagement.
Thanks, Hibo. Hi, everybody. My name's Ron. I'm Senior Manager of Student Engagement for BUSU. That means that I oversee with Radia clubs and events, but I also oversee partnerships and services. I'm very, very fortunate to get to work with Hibo on a daily basis. She truly is the queen of clubs. Her shirt does not lie. For those who may have met me on Monday, I am done Parks and Recreation on Netflix. I have moved on to actually Family Reunion on Netflix. Very much love that show, love Loretta Devine. My dog Agatha will not be making any appearances. Her fee for appearances is far too high, so I'm very sorry. And fun fact is today I bought 2 side tables at HomeSense, and I was very excited because I saw somebody who was eyeing them across the hall, and I jumped at them because I did not want them to go to that home. So very excited for my new blue and gold side tables. If you need to
Amazing.
talk to me, you really shouldn't need to talk to me, but there's things you can if you ever need to reach out to me. You probably want to go through Hebo first, just to make sure she knows everything about clubs. But if you have any questions about events or partnerships and that sort of thing, you can always connect with me and I'll help you out there.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Such a good introduction. What am I watching these days? Modern Family, Schitt's Creek, but I'm on the last episode, so that's going to come to a close, which I have an issue, and I hope I'm not the only one, but when a show is coming to a close or a series is coming to a close, I avoid it and I won't touch that show for like a month until I've processed that it's coming to an end. I heard Behind Her Eyes during CPC. This is something that Radia probably heard too in our meeting. We got a recommendation to watch Behind Her Eyes. I'm not too sure if folks have seen it, but that's something that's on my Netflix watch list now. But if there's any other recommendations, feel free to connect. I don't know besides from what to watch. I don't have anything fun fact that's going on today, but I will think of something and mention it at the end of today's session. Amazing.
I just started season 4 of Jersey Shore, by the way. I am so over Angelina. I can't deal with her. That's just been my life for the last 24 hours, pretty much. I'm just going to say.
Amazing. And I think you also watched The Crown too. I heard The Crown is really good.
I love The Crown. I am so excited for the next season, but I am more excited for Handmaid season 4 coming out in April.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So in case anyone is doing nothing like I do on Fridays, this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be watching Behind Her Eyes. We're going to be watching The Crown and anything else that seems to be in the group chat as well. So we're going to have a busy Friday night, folks. And it seems like it's going to spill into the weekend. So I know what I'm doing at least. But in terms of the session, let's get moving because we have lots of details to go over today. So in terms of details, this is what we're going to be exploring in our 102 session. So we're going to go through this outline, which is very financial heavy. So we're going to go through fiscal responsibility, club funding, sponsorship, partnership, goal setting, club communication, the club guide, which was formerly known as the club constitution, administrative requests, ratification, tips and tricks, and some reminders. I also have a secondary screen over here, so that's why my eyes drift a little bit, in case anyone is wondering. I think I went through a little bit of a welcome piece as well. There is that summit guide that I will show at the end of today's session. Attendance will be taken around the 10-minute mark before we close. Microphones are to remain muted, and question and answers are going to be not necessarily answered, but question and answer period rather will be at the end of today's session. Okay, so let's go through a little bit of a recap. I know lots of us have been here all week, but Monday was our 101 session. So Monday we had our general items in terms of policy, procedures, executive responsibilities, club expectations. We talked about event planning, marketing, and promotions. We also had a presentation from Carissa to talk a lot about the graphic design area as well. Tuesday, we had Scarlett presenting on Experience BU, Risk Management, and CWC. Wednesday, we had Frankie, who was presenting on leadership values, working well together, team building, leadership styles. On the Thursday, which was yesterday, we had Leela and Talia presenting on human rights and human rights definitions, inclusivity, especially within the club world, social justice, gender and sexual violence. And Friday, which is today, we will be speaking about everything that I just outlined in the previous slide. Like I mentioned, today is very finance heavy based, and you don't have to hear my voice for the next couple of minutes, which is great. We're going to pass that virtual mic over to Radia, who will be presenting on financials and club funding.
All right, thank you, Hebo. So you get to listen to me for the next little bit, and then we get to hear our amazing clubs manager once again after I finish these couple slides. All right. So financials and club funding. So our fiscal year runs from May 1st, 2021 to April 30th, 2022. So all the finances that you're dealing with will be from that time period. So anything before that and anything after that is the responsibility of your preceding and succeeding executive team. So clubs are to be fiscally responsible for club financial matters, including expenses, revenue, donations, etc. So what is clubs funding? So through a successful referendum, the Brock University Students Union Clubs Department was granted a student levy, and a portion of this levy is dedicated to club funding. Clubs, sorry, if everyone could just turn off your
Artibor.
All right. So clubs may request club funding through a request form, and they would present that request to the club's policy committee. And I'll just refer to them as CPC moving forward. So club funding is intended for upcoming purchases and not deficits. So you won't, or you have to get approved for your funding, and we'll go through that in the next few slides. So what is CPC? CPC is the committee composed of the club manager, HEBO, DPSS, which is currently myself, but moving forward it will be FAT10, and then BUSAC members as well as student at-large members. CPC responsibilities include, but are not limited to, the following. So ratifications and de-ratifications, supplemental grants, policies and procedures directly and or indirectly related to clubs, and then the general operation and behavior of all ratified clubs. So if you would like more information on CPC, that can be found in policy 605. And then CPC currently meets weekly, and then we're able to process usually 2 requests per meeting. And then clubs can request club funding for the club year as a whole, or per fall and per winter semester on that basis. And then presentations are virtual until further notice, obviously due to restrictions for the pandemic. So on to the next. All right, so what is BUSAC? So I mentioned that CPC is composed of some BUSAC members. So BUSAC is the Brock University Student Administrative Council. So you might actually be hearing things about BUSAC right now because we have our elections running. So candidates have been advertising their candidacy over the past week, I believe. So it's a larger group of elected students and BUSU staff who review and decide upon requests over $1,500. So if your club is requesting more than $1,500, that will not be up to simply CPC's decision. We'd have to present, or the club would have to present to BUSAC, and then BUSAC will make the final decision on whether or not to move forward with the funding based on CPC's recommendation. And then where can you access the club funding request form? This is found on Experience BU through the club's portal, and I'm sure by now you're all a bit familiar with that process. All right, so next slide. What should a funding presentation look like? So usually you'll have an introduction, so of your members who are presenting, so name and position title. Usually it's a couple of executive members, so maybe the president, vice president, and treasurer. You'll give a brief overview on what your club does, what's important to your club, the mission, the vision, and perhaps some goals that you have for the upcoming year. And then you give a year in a glance, so a brief overview on month-to-month activities that you're planning for your club. And then we'll give us an event breakdown. So we'll walk through approved club events, especially those with financial concerns. And each standalone event shall have its own slide. And recurring events can be placed on a single slide. So for example, if you have like weekly bingo with like a prize of a $10 gift card, and you're planning on having that on every Thursday night, you can just place that on one slide. You don't need to have it for every single Thursday of the semester. And then you'll have an expense breakdown, which would have potential purchases not associated with club events or meetings. And then you'd have your quotes. So clubs should provide up to 3 quotes for potential expenses to ensure they've done their due diligence with regards to student fees, because keep in mind, this is being funded by student fees, so we want to make sure that we're being responsible. So these 3 quotes would be provided from potential different vendors. So for example, if you're looking to purchase t-shirts for your club members, we would hope to see 3 different quotes from 3 separate vendors. And then of course, which vendor you like to choose. It doesn't necessarily have to be the cheapest one, but we just want to know that your reasoning for choosing a specific vendor is in line with CPC's values and goals, as well as BUSAC goals. So we just want to make sure that you're doing your research and being responsible. And then finally, we'd like to see a budget breakdown. So next slide. All right, so an event breakdown example would have the event date, the time, the location, the title of the event, the expected number of attendees, costs associated with maybe prizes. So for example, we have $25 in digital gift cards and then times 3 because we'd be giving away maybe 3. And then you'd have the total event cost, which would, for example, be $75. And then you'd have additional event details. So for example, we're looking forward to hosting a winter social with our club members. We plan to play Kahoot, virtual Pictionary, and Among Us. So as mentioned, whenever possible, please include quotes or invoices for the items you're looking to purchase so that we know you've done your research. And then you'd also explain why you've chosen a certain company. And this will allow us to see that you've taken the time and looked at your options. All right. So the next slide is so continuing from the previous slide, so you'd have an expense with your social media giveaway. The expense date would be April 5th to April 9th, for example. Is there a specific time frame for the expense? And then the purpose of the expense, you'd have the cost of the expense and then the total cost, and then additional expense details. So for example, we're running a Get to Know Us campaign where we publish club content and folks can be entered to win a digital gift card. Campaign is free of charge and the goal is to create a larger following and participation. All right, so moving on to the next slide. So this is an example of a budget breakdown. So you'd have the name of your club at the top of the Excel form, the date, and then you would have each item listed, a description of the expense, the estimated cost of the expense, and then when you do purchase, the actual cost. And then you'd have your revenue. So for example, if you're holding some type of event where you're planning on making some money for the club, you'd have the cost per item. Maybe you're selling some merch. So you're selling t-shirts. So you'd have a t-shirt. The description would be for fundraiser or whatever it may be, and times 50 shirts at $10 a shirt. So then you'd have an estimated revenue of $500, and then once you do complete the sales and say you sell 40 shirts, then your actual revenue would be $400. And then the Excel document should do the calculations for you. So then you'd have the total expenses, total revenue, and then the total funding request. So you would have your expenses, you would subtract the revenue. So for example, your expenses come up to $1,500. You make $400, which would result in a funding request of $1,100. And please keep in mind that if you are purchasing, for example, from a US vendor, you'd have to include the exchange rate. You'd also have to include taxes as well as shipping and handling. So these are expenses that you're expected to include in your funding request. All right, so some tips and tricks for funding. So request a club funding presentation early. Be transparent. Be mindful as club funding is provided by student levy, as I mentioned before. So do your homework, make sure you account for tax, shipping and handling, exchange rates, sponsorships, and more. Don't forget to provide quotes, and please feel free to connect with the Busuu Clubs department prior to your submission if you need any help with anything. So the BPSS is available, HEBO is usually available, and we try to get back to you as much as possible. Ron is also a great resource if you maybe can't get in contact with the BPSS or clubs manager, but I would suggest reaching out to the clubs manager or to HEBO or to the BPSS first, and you'll most likely get a response within a couple days. And please keep in mind that we work on a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, so if you're sending a message on the weekend or after 5 p.m., you'll please expect to receive a response at the next business day. So don't forget that club funding does not carry over into the new year. So however your own funds or funds in the trust do. And then utilize free perks that we have. So we have club resources, club materials, we have graphic designer, we have free platforms that we have. And if you'd like more information, please feel free to contact the club department about that. And then make sure you're budgeting regularly and be sure to document your transactions. So please note that club reimbursements and payments are tracked by Busuu. However, it's best if clubs also have their financial matters documented as well. It just makes things a lot easier for everyone. All right, moving on to banking. So club funding works on a reimbursement system. So as I mentioned, you'll be making your purchase and then you will get reimbursed for that purchase. You don't get the money in advance. So if a club is approved for funding, they must provide itemized receipts, invoice, and or proof of payment to the Busuu Clubs department. And if the item is costly and you don't necessarily feel comfortable purchasing that on your own card, please feel free to email Hibo, hahmed@brockbusuu.ca, and you can set up a time to make the payment. We'll do that on your behalf. And all club funding grants stay within Busuu, therefore only the signing officers are able to come into Busuu to make any or all transactions. If you are depositing into your Busuu account, we only accept checks, so make that payable to the Brock University Students Union. And then own funds, as I mentioned before, are the funds and trust. In Busuu, so Busuu clubs have 2 banking accounts. One belongs to club funding grants, while the other account is own funds. These are the funds the club has collected, so that can include the membership fee and sales, etc. So clubs are able to deposit or withdraw into their own accounts via check requisition, also known as check recs. So this is an example of a check rec. So this is what you will fill out when you are requesting a reimbursement. So you would provide an itemized receipt, and then you would also complete the check rec that's pictured here. So a check rec is an accounting term which refers to a form used to request a payment such as a club reimbursement. So the form is pretty straightforward, but if you do need help with that, please feel free to contact the club's department. But it's pretty, as I mentioned, it's pretty straightforward and self-explanatory, so not going to go into too much detail over there. And then finally, I believe this is, yeah, so finally we have external banking. So clubs may bank outside of Busuu only with Scotiabank, and the club is responsible for this bank account. Make sure you have a financial plan and system on how to govern this bank account. Be sure to regularly review bank activity and maintain up-to-date financial records. And then for those who bank externally and wish to request club funding, you should provide an up-to-date account balance. And this is a quick update as of February 28th, 2021. Nolan Leon Baker is the point of contact for Club Scotiabank accounts. Taylor Root is the former small business advisor and mutual funds representative, and she has moved into a new position. Oh, sorry. We wish him the very best. Clearly, I haven't had much contact with him, but this is your point of contact. So Nolan would be your point of contact moving forward. But thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I know I've been talking quite a bit, but if you have any questions, I'm sure you feel free to drop them in the chat and we can answer them at the end of the session, if that works for Hibo. And I will pass it over to her.
Great, thank you so much. And while we actually are here, it looks like there's already chat questions in here. So I want to kind of address one thing before. This change with Taylor and Nolan has been obviously very recent. I have informally met Nolan, but I haven't been provided formal email exchanges in yet. Or such. So once I do have contact information, I'll be sure to provide. Nolan is working on a communication to be sent out to clubs that bank with Scotiabank. And there seems like there is a little bit of a question in terms of why we would perhaps want to have a Scotiabank account. So good question. When it comes to utilizing Scotiabank or Busuu, they work very different. So Scotiabank would be able to provide clubs with that online banking mechanism that has co-signers, and you would be able to receive e-transfers. The one thing that you really need to keep in mind is there is a bank charge, and I believe it's $5 a month that is charged to club accounts with Scotia. So you have to keep that in mind. So if your club isn't making very much revenue and there's not much in that account, then you may not want to open up a Scotia account if it's going to be withdrawn monthly. The other item to look into in terms of Busuu is we don't accept cash and we don't have e-transfers. So in terms of working remotely, we do accept checks. So we do have a process to accept any checks that folks may have, but that's something to keep in mind if you're interested in banking with Scotia. Like I said, or like Radia said, clubs do have access to both accounts. So within Busuu, it is a free account, but Scotia is something that clubs are welcome to explore. And I believe I answered the previous question. So why would we need external banking? It does work well with clubs that have a lot of transactions. Sometimes there are clubs that have multiple purchases that they want to make within their owned funds. So it may be beneficial for them to bank externally. Once I connect with Nolan, I'll be able to provide more information in terms of switching information for the Scotia side. So typically there's forms that we have to fill out. So I'm sure lots of folks are familiar with that. There are forms that you have to fill out if you are banking with Scotia. So that will be something we'll be providing via email communication. When it comes to club funding, you would not need to fill out any documents for us. We keep that tracked on our side, so there wouldn't be anything document-wise that you have to sign. And I believe I have a raised hand from Natasha, so I'll take that now and then I can circle back with some of the questions momentarily. Natasha, if you feel comfortable, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome.
So this year we didn't collect any membership fees, but the first time I ran a club, we didn't use any banking. To be honest, we weren't totally sure what we were doing, honestly. But we ended up keeping a tally like through an Excel sheet of all the fees we collected, and we kept it like within our bank accounts. Is that like, would that have been wrong, like against policies or something? Do we need to use the Busuu bank account?
Great question, and I wish I actually included that in the slide. Personal bank accounts should not be used. So I'm glad that you asked this question. So personal accounts, for instance, if I have a personal account and I'm in a club, I shouldn't make any transactions because those are my personal banking info. So what you would have done in that circumstance, that would have been pre-COVID most likely. So you would have collected those membership fees and then walked over to the Busuu department and then hand them over to Sandra at the front desk or find me, and I'll be able to work with accounting to get that in your club account.
Nice.
Because we are virtual, there's two things to consider. So right now we're going to be having a further discussion about membership fees. So I'm sure everyone who's been a part of clubs this current year knows that membership fee was not mandatory this year. So that's something that we will be looking into about what does the 2021-2022 year look like, but we do still accept checks. So we can still take checks and deposit that within a club account. If there are any additional developments in terms of any further collections of funds, feel free to email me if you have any questions. If you feel lost funding wise, I am going to be more available towards the mid to end of March. So I'm happy to meet with clubs on a one-to-one basis or me with your executive team, and we can walk through some club financial matters as well.
Okay. One thing that first year was that it was difficult to meet some people in person. So we had some of these students e-transferred to one of our accounts, then we took cash out of like our wallet and put it in like our club bank. Can we still at least accept those e-transfers because it makes life a lot easier, and then give cash to Busuu, like physical cash?
I understand it makes life easier, but we wouldn't be able to because, again, transparency reasons, we are dealing with student money. We want to make sure that they're going through the proper channels, and that means not going through personal accounts.
Okay.
But I can work with you and see if there's another alternative that we'll be able to do. Again, checks is the route we're going. If the club is expecting lots of transactions, I know Scotiabank does allow e-transfers to be received. You wouldn't be able to give out e-transfers from a club account, but you can receive them from a Club Scotia account. So that's something we can explore as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And I think I'm going to hop back into the chat quickly, and then we can get into some more questions. We still have lots of information to talk about in terms of sponsorship, fundraising, and partnership, so we're not done. Just going to go through some of these questions. Where can we find the BOOSU budget document Radia discussed? Great question. This can be found on our club site as well on our club's portal on Experience BU. So I'll be sure to make sure that is evident when I am sending a post communication. So there's going to be an email at the end of today, just letting folks know this is where you can access all the resources we talked about this week. So please be sure to check out that email as well. And it looks like we have another hand up, and this will most likely be the last question, and we'll move on to the next info. And I believe we have Nash with their hand up. Amazing.
So this is going off of Natasha's. So what if I were to create a Tangerine bank account using our club's email for e-transfers? So the money would go straight directly into the club's bank account using the club's email. So it wouldn't go into anyone's personal bank account. It would go directly into the club's bank account because it's using the club's email.
Sorry, which platform would this be on?
It would be using one of like the club's platform. So it wouldn't be connected to anybody's personal accounts whatsoever because it would be being emailed directly to the club's email and to the club's bank account, because you can create a bank account using all of the club's information. So it wouldn't be being e-transferred to somebody's personal, it'd be e-transferred to the club's bank account.
And that is very similar to how Scotiabank works. And I don't know if I'm missing a piece, but I know Scotiabank, you would have to open a bank account under a club's name, and then you would be able to e-transfer to that club email. And it would then be opened in that, again, you would be able to access it through that club platform.
I can do that within 5 minutes, and Tangerine has no banking fees. And Tangerine works through Scotiabank.
Well, I'll have to connect with Nolan just to make sure that that is an option for us, because we have our representative from Scotiabank. So I don't know exactly the partnership of Tangerine, but I will connect with our representative and see if that is something that is available. Again, Scotiabank is the route that we are going for those that are interested in that receiving of e-transfers. So I can connect and see if that's something we can look further into and explore. If there's anything that is of value, I'll be sure to share that information with the team.
Okay, yeah. And yeah, sorry, Natasha said it right. Yeah, because I was saying like Tangerine is a subsidiary of Scotiabank. It's like this, like their sister site.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to our sponsorship, fundraising, and partnership discussion. So we're not, like I mentioned, nearly done. We've got lots of stuff to explore. I'm just going to switch to my next monitor just to make sure I'm on the same slide. Great. So sponsorship seems to be something that lots of clubs are super interested in, and this is great, especially those that are interested in exploring the fundraising side, any additional revenue streams, etc. So when it comes to sponsorship, clubs can solicit sponsorship from third-party partners. So this typically is for clubs that are looking to get additional financial support for delicate and competitive fees. Sometimes you can get events to be sponsored. Sometimes sponsored groups or organizations are able to sponsor supplies, catering, prizing, etc. Sponsorship must be provided. I know we talked a lot about the transfer piece, so not necessarily cash in this current pandemic, but the option of receiving bank transfer. There's also the checking, or not checking, rather, the checks that we can receive, and this would be deposited into your club account. Gift cards can also be sponsored as well, and this would be really great and ideal for giveaways and incentive programs. So those that are seeking these sponsorships must have approval through our department in terms of these gift cards and purchasing these event supplies and materials. In addition, sponsorship is not meant to be used to purchase equipment or items that cannot be stored securely in a BOOSU space. And let's talk fundraising. So clubs are to look into other revenue streams, and we talked about sponsorship, and now we'll talk about fundraising. So all clubs are to fundraise, or not rather fundraise, all clubs are to risk manage fundraising efforts. There we go. We recommend as another avenue for, again, generating that club revenue. Revenue can be attributed to club activities and events, or sometimes some clubs have a charity initiative that they want to run. I've seen quite a lot, which is really exciting, and hopefully I get to see lots more. Examples of fundraisers are crowdfunding, donations collected virtually, pay what you can, tickets, virtual talent shows, virtual club socials, and more. Prohibited fundraisers would be auctions, lottery. I know on the Tuesday when we had Scarlett, we talked a little bit about the lottery license aspect, pub crawls, any homemade bake sale or homemade food in general is also prohibited. Okay, so let's talk about partnerships. So for those that have been on our Summit Resource Guide, again, on our barockbusu.ca/clubs, once you scroll down, there's lots of resources. And one of those, which is hyperlinked here, is steps to partnership and sponsorship. So it tells you a little bit of a breakdown on kind of what your club should look into and explore if interested in partnerships. So I highly recommend to looking at that. So in terms of partnership examples, we see lots of clubs partnering together, so lots of joint events. We've also seen campaigns and other initiatives, workshops, trainings, etc. Clubs can also partner with BUSU. So there's the opportunity that BUSU has presented for clubs to host joint events, sponsor some major campaigns, event support resources, sponsorship and partnership management. So there is that opportunity, and I know this is something that Ron spoke of as well, so we can definitely connect you to the right people. Lots of clubs, specifically the academic clubs, usually partner with a faculty and or department at Brock University. So this usually happens around orientation. So around that September month, we see lots of academic clubs partnering up with some of their adjacent faculty programs. You can partner with these departments and faculty programs through events, initiatives, engagement, even communications. Some faculty departments also provide newsletters or handouts or the opportunity to do class talks, etc. So there's lots of ways to partner through these proper channels. And then another piece, especially those in the community development area, clubs are able to partner with community organizations and businesses, again, with joint events, campaign, fundraising, etc. When it comes to partnership in the social media realm, we see lots of clubs cross-promote. So if I'm a part of the I Heart Modern Family Club, I would connect with other clubs and ask them to share some of my approved promotion materials, and then vice versa as well. You can also partner with us in terms of the @Brock BUSU Club's Instagram and share some of your content. Carissa has really great initiatives. Two that you're probably super familiar with is the Club of the Week, as well as the weekly feature, which every Tuesday, Carissa has lots of content that's sent through our DMs, and we're able to showcase upcoming events every week. And then we can also highlight a Club of the Week. So in terms of communication, I already kind of highlighted this, but there's an opportunity for us. So communication, we have our features, we have our highlights, like I mentioned, social media wise, but we also have monthly newsletters. And we're not the only group who has monthly newsletters. I know the Student Life and Success Department also has newsletters that clubs are welcome to write a blurb and get some content in there. I believe the International Center also has a newsletter where clubs can connect and put some club content in there. So I definitely recommend seeking partnerships, especially if it's around the Brock community. Okay, so when it comes to partnerships, what should you consider? Connect with me on who your club is hoping to approach. So you would do this before you even approach any of these possible partners. You want to connect with me and let me know exactly the groups or the individual that you want to partner with and the purpose of partnering. And then I'll be able to share some feedback. Be sure to outline what you want to offer to the partner and what the partner can offer to your club. If there is a partnership agreement, be sure to connect with me, because all contracts and agreements have to be reviewed by the BUSU Clubs Department. It's a pretty good idea to have a partnership agreement or something along the lines of documentation, just making sure that you know what each party is responsible for or what they're going to be bringing to this partnership. And then how to approach your partner. There is that handout, those step-to-step guide. So some clubs may want to go through the route of email. form requests. There could also be a social media aspect as well. Make sure you have a backup plan in the event that this partner says no, it's just not the right time for them. See if there's alternatives. Maybe there's a better time. Maybe there's other like-minded partners that you can connect with, etc. Make sure you have a partner, not a partner, rather a backup plan, because you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. And then be mindful of partners' times, especially depending on when this partnership is going to happen. You want to be mindful if there's a holiday coming up, if it's reading week, is it going to impact folks' schedules, etc. Okay, so let's talk about goal setting. So this is something I've seen a few times around, and I'm sure some folks has also seen this before. So before I go into goal setting, I've seen this acronym of SMART, which is the S stands for specific, then we go to measurable, attainable, relevant, time-based. This is a really cool breakdown for those that are interested in goal setting. I've used it before, not necessarily in the club world, but I do see there's value if using this acronym and being able to kind of organize your goal setting. But we actually have a bigger area to discuss when it comes to goal setting. So goal setting is a very important piece to this club puzzle, especially during this time of transition. We have folks that are entering new roles. We have folks that are able to be re-elected and they're coming into a new role or a new club, or even just with new folks. We have folks who haven't started a club yet, and this is their very first club exposure. So right now is the best time to start setting your goals, especially before we get into the exams month. You may want to take this time to sit down with the team, sit down by yourself and start setting up some goals. When it comes to some items to keep in mind, there's some questions in here to ask yourself. First being, how will you measure success? Every club measures success differently. Does this differ from an in-person setting? Does it differ virtually? Is it qualitative? Is it quantitative? Lots of things to consider. Can you implement any new club elements, initiatives, events? How do you want to measure those? Who's going to be responsible, etc.? Can you offer a new club experience this time around? Because we are virtual, we're almost forced to be innovative and think outside of the box. Maybe that's an opportunity for you to start thinking, what new elements can we add into this club or club experience? Can you improve your club visibility or the visibility of others? Can you enhance folks' voice, etc.? There would be a great spot to connect, and this kind of trickles in a little bit from the HRE conversation yesterday, is just making sure that everyone understands that they are a valued member of the club, and how are you able to project that value? How can you be more accessible? So I know in a virtual aspect, there are lots of areas to consider. So there's that closed captions, like I mentioned at the beginning of our session. We have a subtitle generator form that Carissa has created on our clubs portal. There's other avenues for you to take when it comes to accessibility. So that's something that I encourage all clubs to look into. How can you broaden your networks? Is there ways that you can connect with other clubs? Have you had a wish list of folks that you want to connect with and you just haven't got the chance to? Perhaps this is a good time to work on that wish list and maybe even start tackling some of those folks and seeing if you can build that connection. Can you improve on time management or communication? This really trickles in from the Wednesday session with Frankie. Maybe there's leadership items that you can incorporate if you haven't done an icebreaker before, if you haven't done the 16 personalities or my 4 tendencies. What else is there? I think those are the main ones that I've seen. And then the one that we were able to provide with Frankie. Maybe there's ways to look into your own leadership styles or the leadership styles of your executive team. When it comes to goal setting, transfer of knowledge is a huge piece of goal setting, making sure that hopefully there is a time to transition. We do have a transition template found with all of our other Summit resources guide on our website. So there is some information in there that you're welcome to download and look into when transitioning into your new role. So maybe there's an opportunity for you to even shadow some of the outgoing execs. If you're a president, this is something I highly recommend. Maybe taking that opportunity to connect with the current executives and seeing kind of what does their club week to week, month to month look like? What are they responsible for? What are their goals? What were they able to achieve? What do they want to pass on to the new team, etc.? Okay, so let's move on to administrative requests. So I'm sure all of us are very familiar with the request forms that we have within Busuu. There's lots of forms for clubs to use. Though it sounds like there's lots of forms in comparison to actually tackling the contents of these forms, they're quite easy to get through. They're not super time consuming, which is great, but all these forms are resources, which is excellent. So here is a list of our forms. On the Tuesday session with Scarlett, she was able to walk us through Experience BU as a platform, as well as specifically the risk management piece. So the Student Event Risk Management and Approval is what SIRMA stands for. But under our club's portal, we have a various amount of forms. So we have our club funding form, which we talked about a little bit earlier. We have a Netflix request form. So we do have a club Netflix, and clubs can use it alongside the Netflix party. I think it's a Chrome extension or a regular kind of platform add-on. So that's really great for clubs that are hoping to host virtual movie nights. We have Instagram Takeover, which we got lots of requests last year, and hopefully we do moving forward. But folks, I don't know if all clubs know this, but we have, of course, our @BrockBusuu Club's Instagram. Hopefully everyone's following us. But one thing that's super cool is you can take over our Instagram as well. So that's a really cool opportunity. Ideally around like an event, or maybe there's something coming up networking partnership wise, you can request a time and date to take over our Instagram and highlight your club on our platform story. So that's super cool. That's something you would work with Carissa. Talking about Carissa, she has various club request forms. So there's the logo request form, there is the Meet the Club of the Week, there is a virtual poster. So there's lots of forms under Carissa's portfolio as well, who can definitely help you. That's usually my recommendation if you have any inquiries about graphic design, is turn to the request forms that we have, even if you're not able to complete every single question. Most of the questions are optional. There's not very many required items. And then Carissa will be able to follow up with an email. And then sometimes she'll be able to even host a meeting with you just to kind of get a bigger glimpse on what you're looking for. We also have a club Zoom account. I know this has been widely used, which is excellent. So lots of you probably already know, but we have a Zoom account where clubs are welcome to put forth a request and be able to take over the Zoom account for that requested time and date. General rule in terms of submission times, you're looking at 10 to 21 days in advance, aside from club funding. Club funding is usually booked well in advance. This is why we highly recommend submitting your club funding request earlier. But when it comes to general requests, we want to see about 10 to 21 days. It does give us an opportunity to actually go through the requests. I know when it comes to SIRMA, we're looking at that 10-day mark, sometimes 21 days, depending on what the elements are within that submission. But essentially, and it's again a good rule of thumb, try to request your club submissions forms earlier. It gives us some time to be able to process. There's been a handful of times that we get requests on a Friday night, and the event or what the request submission is for is to start Saturday morning. And unfortunately, we don't work on that quick of a timeline. So if you can provide us some additional days, that would be great. Another item that we mentioned here is have optional dates. So if you're looking at a Zoom account, see if there's backup times and dates, because we've had to run into shifting some times that have been submitted because we've had some overlap. So be sure to have some optional dates ready when you're looking at certain request forms. Okay, so let's talk ratification, which I'm actually going to stop my screen share and go over to our ratification form and show you what it looks like. Okay, so let me go back to Zoom, and then I'll be able to screen share and I can show you what our ratification form looks like. I'm sure there's a number of us who have gone through the online ratification form already, so there hasn't been very major differences, but there is some changes I want to bring to our attention. Ratification does open at the end of today's session, so a link will be provided towards the end. I think I've mentioned this already, but I'm a fan of Modern Family. That's something I've been watching, so I am going to pretend to make the iHeart Modern Family Club. So essentially you would put in the club name and then the abbreviation. And then you would have a description of your club. Obviously, this is not a real club, so your club would be a little bit broader. If you haven't started a club before, you don't want to be too case specific, but this is just an example. Next section of the ratification is the club email address. It is a required item, so anything with that red star icon has to be fulfilled to move on to the next page. So you'd go ahead and fill in your club email address. This would not be a student email address. And then you have the option to add in your social media or other platforms that your club will be using. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, your club website. There's a drop box, or not drop box rather, but a paragraph box where you can fill in Discord, TikTok, Twitch, etc. All the platforms that your club is using. Please put those handles in here so we can be sure that this fulfills or falls under the club mandate. And then you would go ahead and select what category your club would fall under. I'm doing a community development category of building a iHeart Modern Family community. And then you would ideally select yes if you received club training. That means you've attended the trainings all week, or you were able to watch all the recordings of the training from each session date. And then you would click that yes. If you click no, it will ask you to connect with me, and I'll be able to let you know where you can access those items if you haven't already. And then if you are working with any external partners or advisors, you would select yes under this question. And then in here is where you can add in your external advisors. I just did this for an example. I'm the external advisor for the iHeart Modern Family. If you click no, this subsection will not pop up. And then policy acknowledgement. So there's lots of policies for clubs to look into. So we have our Boost alcohol policy. This is more pertaining to those in-person events, but it is something that clubs have to look into, as lots of club in-person events towards the end of the year, like the galas or the awards, etc. Sometimes contain alcohol, and they will definitely have to abide by that alcohol policy. Then you have the respectful work and learning environment policy that Leela mentioned yesterday. We have the BOSU Student Code of Conduct, or not the BOSU, rather, the Brock Student Code of Conduct policy that clubs, again, have to abide by. We have the BOSU Clubs Policy 500, which I talked a lot about on the Monday session. And then we have our new and improved clubs handbook. So you'd be sure to open these. They all open, for example, in a PDF window format. So you'll be able to, once it slowly connects for me, you'll be able to view this item, and you can also download it for club records as well. So you'd go ahead and go through this, and then we have our amazing handbook. I wonder if, I think I can just go back. I hope I didn't lose my Modern Family information. I didn't. Amazing. Okay, cool. So then you would click yes once you've read and understood all these documents that are listed here. And then you would click next. So the next piece we're looking in is our liability acknowledgement. So you're making sure that you're reading all of these items, saying that you are an authorized representative of your club, of BOSU, of Brock, making sure that you understand when it comes to any liability areas of cost, damages, actions, making sure that you have read, again, the handbook. And once you've gone through this, you would click the yes that you've acknowledged and understood all the above content. And then same idea in here. In terms of club liability acknowledgement, you would go ahead and read 1 through 6 and making sure that you've read them thoroughly. And then from there, you would be able to put in your club name. I'll just put Hebo. And then yes, I have read, once you've actually have read through this ratification portion. And then you're looking into your signing officer. So again, these are items that you would have to account for. Signing officers specifically for financial matters, making sure that your club understands that your club is financially responsible for club expenses, revenue, and all financial matters. Making sure that you understand CPC, and something that we've mentioned before, CPC and BOSU will not, of course, absorb the cost of clubs running into a deficit. So once you've consented, you would click that button, and then you would put in your name. So I'm just going to autofill lots of these items. I'm just going to pretend that I am the president, vice president, and treasurer, which is not the case. They're supposed to be separate people. But for time's sake, I'm just going to autofill and not make up new names and phone numbers and contacts. And then there's an option down here where you can add other executives. So then you would put their name, their last name, position, and email, and you'd have all that information in here. And then the last piece is, will the club president be the main BOSU contact for the club? Sometimes the club vice president will be that liaison between BOSU and the club. So you want to make sure that you've outlined. Yes, they will be. Okay, great. And then this is step 4. So this is the end piece of our ratification puzzle. So you would upload a full Excel document of your membership list. This is different from previous years, or at least one previous year, because before that ratification was in paper. But essentially the year before we had a text box where you would type in each individual. This time around, you would put your membership list on an Excel document, and that would be everyone, executives and general members, and you would upload that in here from choosing a file from your computer. And in here, I believe it states that we're looking for, full name and email shall be present on the uploaded document. And then the club guide. So this is different from what we've seen before. So I'll just open that up. So here is our club guide. Okay, amazing. So club guide, formerly known as club constitution. Contents are quite similar. Major difference is the title change. So you would insert anything that is in the color blue. So you would remove this portion and put in the date that you're filling out this ratification and or club guide. You would have your club name in here and club logo. And then again, you would insert anything that is blue. Anything that's in the black text has to remain on your club guide. And then anything that is in orange is essentially a bit of a description on what we're looking for under those headings. So you would have Article 1 would be your name, Article 2 would be the purpose of your club existence. In here, you'll see that you can have more than 3, but this is what we're looking for. Article 3 is your membership, which would remain the same. Article 4 is where you would present your club executives. You can have more than the 3 that are listed here. Article 5 is the duties of these executives. Again, you can have more listed if your club has an event coordinator or a social media coordinator, etc. And then we go into Article 6, which is finances, which would remain the same. You have Article 7, which is meeting information, which would remain the same. You have your election piece, which would remain the same. Amendments, which would remain the same. Article and impeachment, which would remain the same. And then we go into liability and agency clause, which you would insert your club details here. And I believe I can just alt tap to the next portion. So then you would go ahead and upload those items. And the last piece is a general file upload. Some clubs already have a club guide of their own. Some clubs fall under a chapter and they have their own club resources and documents that they need to provide or we need to review. So anything that falls outside of this area in terms of membership and club guide, you can upload here, and this button does provide multiple uploads. So if you have multiple club documents, organization documents, etc., you'll be able to upload here, and then you would click submit, and that would be your ratification. So I'm going to stop my screen share because I saw some questions come into play. So I'm just going to quickly head over to the chat function, and I'll be able to answer some questions. Great. So if we have a club co-president structure, how would you fill that out? So in that additional executive spot, you would put co-president position and that contact info, and then we'll be sure to make sure that information is updated on our site. And not necessarily our site, but on our side of the documents, because we have a master list of clubs and club content and club contacts. So we'll be sure to make that co-president piece evident. So it says treasurer and secretary is a mandatory role. There's more questions. What if one has not been elected? So ideally you want to have a treasurer and or secretary position. Someone should be overseeing the club finances, and someone should hopefully be overseeing any of those club secretary responsibilities. If you do not have one, hopefully there is a system in place within your club to be able to identify those roles. Again, it would be ideal to have separate roles. So I would ask Nicoletta to email me and I'll be able to work with you to figure out what would be the best case scenario. Again, treasurer, and something that I mentioned in the Monday session is treasurer is quite the heavy role when it comes to responsibility. So it should be on its own. When it comes to the secretary role, you want to make sure that there's someone in that place to be able to go through any of the communication pieces, any of the mass emails. Maybe there's some communication that needs to be sent out or received or delivered. So you want to make sure that there's someone in that role, because you don't want to have an inbox that is empty or an email that is just full of a bunch of inquiries. So you want to make sure there's someone in that secretary role, but the treasurer one is something that you would have to move forward with. Is there a minimum amount of members of a club in order to be ratified? Yes. So our Monday session, we went through a little bit of a bigger breakdown, but you need to have 3 executive members. So ideally the ones that we have identified, it's the president, vice president, treasurer, and or secretary piece. So those are the roles that we typically see within the club world. In terms of general members, you would also need 10 general members within that club too. Is the membership list the list of current members, or do we need to find students who wish to continue participating in the club for next year? Great question. So clubs membership lists are typically at this point in time current members of the club, and then during the president's meeting, we have updated information, which happens usually in the September month, about what to do for updating your membership list. So when it comes to this ratification form, you want to have your current members, and then it's inevitable for clubs to gain additional members throughout the spring, summer months, which is completely fine. You want to just make sure you have that recorded on an Excel document, because at that president's meeting, we'll have an update in terms of how we can receive that information. Amazing. I think those are it in terms of questions. So I'm just going to hop back onto the slideshow, and I'll be able to screen share once more. Okay, let's go from this current slide. I'm just going to switch screens. So we did ratification and the club guide. So hopefully that makes lots of sense. If not, we have a question period at the end. So please feel free to ask your questions. Tips and tricks. So want to make sure that you're leaving with lots of tips and tricks, because it has been a busy week with club content. So we want to make sure that we can circle back on what you would be focusing on. So on our Monday session, we talked about post-summit items in terms of transition will be that big piece. The goal setting is something we identified today. You want to have some time to digest this information, fill out that ratification piece, and then start working towards a very successful club year. In terms of how we can help you, tips and tricks wise, you want to stay close to your club channel. So you want to stay close to your club social media, your communication, your email. We use email quite often, so that's something that you want to look into. For those who have been a part of clubs, you already know there's a Facebook group. So that's something that we use often. We will have a Facebook group for the 2021-2022. So that's something that will be sent out in the post-summit email. So that's something to look out for. We do have a group where we post lots of information to our club executives. So it's information about newsletters or upcoming events, etc. Some clubs also feel free to put your own club content in there. So if there's an upcoming club event and you want to get some more participation, or there's an invitation, you can feel free to use that club executive Facebook. For those that are current club executives, hopefully you're already on. If you're not, it's called Busuu Club Executives 2020-2021. Or not executives, sorry. The Busuu Club Executives 2020-2021. I think that's exactly what I said. The next tip and trick, you want to make sure that your club content is up to date. So we're talking your club social media, we're talking your club website, even the information on our club's directory. We do about 2 to 3 times a year connect with clubs. If there's anything on our clubs directory, which I will screen share afterwards, that is out to date, let us know. We can happily update it. If you have a new description, a new Instagram handle, etc., let us know. The next piece is resources. Use the resources that we have available. We have lots of ways for you to connect with our clubs department. So we have lots of resources for the summit. We have all the administrative requests that we've mentioned. One item that I recommend, which I've started to use, and I've got lots of great feedback from it, which I think I'm going to continue using it. But let's take the example, if there's a member, an executive member specifically in your club, looking to access a form and they don't know how. Something that I've been doing that's a little bit easier is just screen recording. So whether I'm on my phone or I'm on the laptop, is just screen record and showcase exactly what buttons I'm clicking and how you can access the form that they're requesting for. That makes time go by super easy, and then you have it on your phone or your laptop file, so you can just quickly drag and drop. And that makes it a little bit easier for communication wise. Requests and send submissions in advance, please. Ideally 10 to 21 days is what we're looking for. Don't be shy, don't be discouraged or hesitant. Ask for help when you need it, even if you don't necessarily need help, but you want guidance. It sounds like there's a microphone on, so just as a reminder, please have your microphone off. But want to circle back when it comes to, yes, asking for help, seeking guidance. We come from a more coaching, mentorship type mindset. We want to provide you with the tools to be able to succeed and not do these requests essentially for you. So we want to connect with you, and feel free to connect with us. We have walk-in hours, which I'll be spending some time on that slide in a moment. Attend the walk-in hours was the next piece, and the last piece is explore club materials. So this is, of course, a learning curve, whether you are new or whether you're continuing a role in the club world. Being in a club is a volunteer piece, and it is a learning curve. We are building very strong leaders, which is great, and we're assisting in that piece. We want to make sure, again, that you have these tools to move forward, because students have elected you into this role, which is an amazing achievement to begin with. And then now these students trust you with these roles and carrying out this mandate and providing them with a safe space. So we want to make sure that you're able to do it with the support of our team. And that is our general tips and tricks. We have some reminders. So important dates. Ratification opens today and it closes April 2nd. Email will be out, graphic will be out. Graphic is already out, I think, but information will be sent off to you. The ratification link will be sent in the chat today, just as a little early piece, but make sure that you keep in mind this important date that ratification opens today and closes Friday, April 2nd. Club guide has changed. We went through it. So it's formerly known as Club Constitution, but it's called Club Guide. When you're filling out that ratification, you'll be able to click on that link, download it, and then fill in those blue texts and re-upload it. Takeaways, our sessions are recorded. There is content out there within the club guide. I believe there was also a Sakai portion from Brock HRE, which that will be in my hands shortly, and I'll be able to showcase. So be sure to sit down, digest all this club content information in terms of summit-wise, because there's lots of takeaways. Hopefully you've been taking some notes. There's, again, going to be a space next week where we'll be able to provide the recordings. And like I mentioned, walk-in hours are happening. Carissa is going to be available to connect with you Tuesdays, so March 16th and the 23rd from 1 to 2 p.m. There's going to be a Zoom link that will be sent out in our post-summit email. And then I'll be hosting a walk-in Friday, so March 19th and the 26th from 11 to 12. Again, there's going to be a post email sent out about the summit, and you'll find this content in there. We're going to switch gears a little bit because I want to bring our attention to a program I've been working with Brock and Busu. So WUSC, some of you may have heard, the World University Service of Canada is a program that Busu has been supporting for some time now, as well as Brock University. So WISC is a Canadian nonprofit organization working to create a better world for all young people. So they bring together a diverse network of students, volunteers, schools, governments, and business who share the same vision. Together, they foster youth-centered solutions for improved education, economic, and empowerment opportunities to overcome inequality, exclusion, and in over 15 countries. So these countries are across Asia, continent of Africa, and America. There's also something specific that I want to pay our attention to is SRP, which is a student refugee program. So that's the area that we've been supporting a little bit in terms of time-wise. It's been a few years that this has been with us, and I'm excited to enhance our SRP program. So SRP is the only one-of-a-kind combined resettlement opportunity for higher education. This program does offer 130 refugee students and supports rather. And it's actually seen across 95 Canadian campuses, which is super amazing. They have empowered over 2,000 young refugees over 39 countries of origin and continue their education in safe, supportive environments within Canada since this program has started. So some more information in terms of kind of what WISC and SRP really stands for. There are 5 areas that they really focus on is inclusivity, leadership, sustainability, facilitation, and integrity. Like I mentioned, there's 95 Canadian institutions that WISC and the SRP program is a part of. Busu and Brock University being one of them. So what we are really looking for is dedicated students to assist us with elevating our SRP program. So like I mentioned, we've had this for a few years, but we're really looking to enhance the program and include a lot more student voices. In terms of the structure, so the WISC program with Busu is defined as a local committee, and that's something that comes from WISC themselves, but it works very similar to a club structure. So we're looking for a club president, a vice president, a treasurer, etc. So certain roles to fall under this program that we're hoping to enhance. In terms of responsibilities, it's essentially assisting our newcomers in the SRP program, assisting these students with their arrival, with adjusting to Canadian life, when it comes to academics, when it comes to mentorship, coaching, social network, shopping, etc. Making sure that these folks do feel a little bit more at ease when coming in from a very different lifestyle. You would essentially be a support person for these students. We do have students within this role, and we want to again enhance and include more student voices. Training will be provided by WISC. A questionnaire will be required as we are dealing with, of course, very confidential matters. WISC is a huge life-changing opportunity for many students, and we want to incorporate as many student voices and opinions and thoughts within this program. So if you are interested in partaking into WISC and assisting us in elevating the SRP, please feel free to email me for some more information. I'm excited to work with anyone who is interested because we do, again, have areas that we can improve when it comes to this program, and I'm excited to better support lots of our students. Great. I believe I might have switched up the slides, but we can go into questions and then I'll talk about our survey afterwards. I'm going to quickly hop over to, that's not what I was wanting to do. I was going to hop over into the chat box because there seems like there was some communications going on. I have to stop my screen share because the chat function isn't working. So give me 1 second. Oh, great. Krista already mentioned. So ratification is live in our link tree. I'll put the actual link in here. Does the ratification form still need to be filled out if the club existed last year? Ratification does have to be filled out each year. So whether you are ratifying for the first time or if you're re-ratifying, so luckily Carissa has already mentioned that, which is great. So all clubs will have to fill in that ratification form. Question period is now open. We do have some time before I talk a little bit about my screen shares and where to access some information. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. I'm just going to quickly take a drink of water, so I will be here in one moment. So we do have a question about Club Awards. I believe I mentioned this on the Monday as well. So Club Awards will be happening in terms of the club's banquet itself, of course, in an in-person environment will not take place, but we are coming up with something in the virtual setting. And once we have some more information, that will be sent out. For those that are unfamiliar with the Club Awards, we give out Club Awards each year for various awards. We have Club of the Year, Event of the Year, Best New Club, Most Spirited, etc. So there's lots of different awards, 9 specifically, that we give out. And essentially, clubs would fulfill the nomination forms themselves, and then we would close off that nomination period, go through all of the submissions with CPC, and then from there we'll be able to hand out these awards to those winners. And the attendance link will be in this chat box in a minute. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know. If you have any questions for any of us within the club's department, please feel free to ask. You're welcome, David. Okay, since it's just about 3:20, I can go ahead and get that attendance link in our chat. And then I will, since it seems like there isn't any questions, I will circle back and screen share to our site. I just want to make sure that I have everything opened. Okay, great. So let me quickly screen share, and then I want to bring our attention to our summit survey. So in a moment or so, you should be able to see my screen. I think now it should be working. This is our Busuu Club's homepage. So in here, you'll see our record-breaking 119 clubs, which is great. A little bit of a description, but where I want to turn our attention to is towards the bottom of the page where it says additional documents and information. You'll see an area here that says Club Summit, and these are the information I was talking about a little bit earlier. So in here, you'll have the welcome letter, the Club Summit schedule, transition document, etc. Some financial information is also found in here, but specifically about Summit-wise, this is the information that we've been able to talk to this week. As mentioned, there is a Sakai link that's going to be sent to me from Brock HRE, and that will be under this resource page, but I'll be sure to highlight it in our post-summit email. The club's directory is something I also mentioned. So this is our club's directory where we list all of our current ratified clubs. In here, you'll see your club logo, your club name, contact info, and a description of your club. So we have lots of clubs in here, lots of logos as well, and contact information. If there's any information in here you would like to update, let us know. We'll be happy to do so. And this goes all the way down to our very last club in terms of alphabetical order. And the last piece is just going back to our slideshow because we also have a survey, which is super exciting. We want to hear some feedback from you on how you thought the Club Summit went in regards to the sessions or the times or anything you think would be important for us to know. We are not asking for your name in terms of confidentiality, but we do ask for your email because you can be entered a chance to win a $50 Brock Campus Store gift card, which is super exciting, but we do need an email to send this gift card to. So at the end of that link, we do ask for your email. So in the event that you do win, we'll be able to send that over to you. And that brings us to the very end. So don't leave yet. I'm going to put in all those links that I've mentioned before. So we have the attendance link. I'm going to get the ratification link in here as well. Again, an email will be sent in case you don't get a chance to record the ratification link, but it may be nice to have this on a browser, maybe even favorited on a browser, so you'll be able to return.
Hi, Hibo. Do you mind if I step in and just mention something about the photos?
Absolutely, go right ahead.
Awesome. So we're working on an end of the year project just to kind of commemorate the 2019-2021 clubs year. So I will be putting out a graphic later on the Instagram, and I'll also put it in the Facebook group. But if you guys have any photos, I know they'll probably all be of Zoom pages. If you guys have those, if you could just DM them to our Instagram page, just so we can use them, that would be great and extremely helpful. Thank you.
Amazing, thank you. Okay, so you'll see in the chat, I have the attendance, which I don't know why I did not label. So let me do this again. So the first form is attendance. I'll put this in a separate one. And then we have the ratification link. And then we have the survey link. And that's the last link that I'll share. The survey link will open momentarily. It actually opens up at 4 o'clock. So I'll be able to circle back to try to open up the survey a little bit sooner. And those are the additional links. I do also have a slide for our contact information. So as mentioned before, I am your direct point of contact for anything club-wise, so feel free to email me. Anything graphic-wise, you can email Carissa. You can also connect with Radia as well if you have specific questions for Radia. Her email is vpss@brockbusu.ca. And then if you're interested in connecting with Ron, connect with me and I'll be able to send that email over to Ron. Be sure to follow us on social media. I mean, us, all of Busu and our clubs Instagram specifically. So you can follow Busu at Brock Busu handle. You can follow our clubs at Brock Busu clubs. I highly recommend if your club has an Instagram account, which it should, because Instagram works really well in the club environment. Perhaps utilize the notification option. So once we post, your club account will have a notification and you can see what we're up to. There's also the Busu events handle where there's lots of content about our Busu events and engagement. There's also the Busu advocacy Instagram handle as well, which we encourage you to follow. And that brings us again to the very end. Now is my official ending. I thank you all for coming to our virtual summit. It's been quite the change. And I thank you very much for the journey, for the effort that you have put to this virtual space. It again isn't an easy change, but I'm very impressed by everything clubs have been able to achieve. We really hope that this has been beneficial to all of you. And we again are super excited to join you on this club journey. If you have any questions, connect with us. If not, you have lots of Netflix movie streamings and TV shows to watch this Friday and weekend, and we will see you later this month. Take care, everyone. Have an amazing Friday and weekend. Oh no, it looked like all of the form links are the same. Oh no, okay. Post email is going to be sent. Don't you worry. I will connect with everyone and we'll send an email shortly. Thank you everyone for the kind words. I appreciate it. Everyone is free to go. I will have Carissa and Ron stick back a little bit. I'm going to stop the recording now.